This was about 2 months after he took office. That was an interesting experience in its own right.
Now I want to show you just a very, very quick clip of Sage Steele. This is 4 years ago interviewing Joe Biden. It's a quick bite, and then I'll explain why.
Here as we get set for a wonderful day in sports. Opening day for America's national.
Oh, so guess what? I don't need to show you any more of that interview because surprise, surprise, turns out that the entire thing was choreographed. Questions were given to her. The questions were given to Biden. And here she is explaining a bit of the network and corporate control over that interview.
This was about 2 months after he took office. That was an interesting experience in its own right because it was so structured and I was told, you will say every word that we write out. You will not deviate from the script and go to the word. Like every single question was scripted, gone over dozens of times by many executives, editors and executives. Absolutely. I was on script and was told not to deviate. It was very much, this is what you will ask. This is how you will say it. No follow-ups. No follow-ups. Next. I knew that this was a lot bigger than just the wonderful editors that I worked with. This went up to the fourth floor, as we said, that we're all the bosses, the top executives, the decision makers are the president of our company.
Okay, so I don't need to show you any more clips of her interviewing Biden, and you're probably not surprised by that, right? You work at a giant corporation, ABC, NBC, ESPN, CNN, et cetera, and you're going to get the president of the United States, especially Biden, who's in diminished capacity, even 4 years ago, when she just said he had just taken the presidency. He was 2 months in, basically. They are not going to let you just ask him questions. They're not going to let him just sit down and chat for an hour, which is why he doesn't do podcasts, even with friendlies, right? Everything is controlled. He always has his notes in front of him that tell him who he's talking to or who he's going to answer a question from, et cetera, right? They're handing him stuff that it looks like a third grader should be reading. That's where we're at. But Sage continued. She was on Adam Carolla Show this morning, and she had a bit more info on that whole situation.
Late breaking news, you did an interview with Biden a couple of years back, and the scuttlebutt is it was all sort of pre-scripted. Is that fair to say?
Very much. Word for word.
Word for word. Here are the questions.
Yes. Which, trust me, as a journalist, it made me sick. Like, that's just wrong, because it's one thing to have the questions scripted, and which never happens in my career. It was the first time in 28 years, first time. Almost the worst part to me was that I wasn't allowed to ask a follow-up question.
Oh, is that part of the stipulation?
Yes.
That's interesting.
So if he said something, which he did, a couple of things about his thoughts on why the Major League Baseball All-Star Game should be taken out of Atlanta at that point because of all the racist voter laws. And I wanted to push back and say, well, what do you mean by this? Even if it's just to clarify something.
Yeah.
As a journalist, that's my job, to listen and ask, because it's not about me, it's about the viewers who are trying to listen to the commander-in-chief. And I wasn't allowed to even ask a follow-up. And there's a lot more to the story, what led to, I think, me getting the Biden interview, which I will reveal at some point. I'm not quite there yet. But at the same time, I'm not going to say no, right?
Because Atlanta was Jim Crow 2.0, which then turned into Jim Eagle, which is about the stupidest thing I've ever heard anybody say. But thank you, race baiter. Thank you, race hustler.
It just cracks me up. And I wanted to say, wait,
Jim
so
Eagle.
You think we're black people are not smart enough to remember to bring our ID when we stand in line anywhere? Because, by the way, if we're driving a car to get in line.
To get an ID. He thinks you're not smart enough to get an ID, not remember to bring one.
Right. But in the meantime, I'm the racist for asking a question, for saying, wait, what is this?
All right, so first off, whatever else it is that she wants to reveal about that, as I said, we have her in studio next week, so I will hopefully get that information out of her. But she also said something almost as a side there that's the most interesting part. She's like, but I did the interview, meaning like she knew there were all these controls. It was never how she operated as a journalist for 28 years, but I did the interview because the president's willing to sit down with you, you do the interview. But that right there shows this massive divide that we now have between the online media, how that operates, and how the corporate media operates. Because think about it, if you're a corporate media guy, you're saying, okay, I will take a big check to work for you. I will do what you say. Versus online, especially if you're independent, and not everybody's independent, but if you're independent, all I can do is what I think is right. I'm the boss, I'm paying the checks, I'm bringing in the money, and I can just do what I think is right. And if one day I do something really stupid and Dave Rubin brings me into the office and smacks me down, well then, so be it.